Keep up with Scottish football with your host, John Turner.
So my guest today on the Lowball Show has had spells with Falkirk, Partick Thistle, Hamilton, Forfar, Sengkang Punggol. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
A long list ahead of you here.
Ayr United, a couple of spells at Airdrie, a couple of spells at Clyde. Has also been at Los Angeles Blue and is currently at Caledonian Braves. Ricky Waddell. Ricky, thanks for joining me.
Good morning, John. Hi, thanks for having me on.
So, yeah, just now at Caledonian Braves, how's that going?
Things are going all right. Excuse me. We've had quite a bit of a turnover of squad there, which was a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. Just that squad that I had for the last 2 years was, one that I'd put together, really from scratch. It was after COVID had kicked in, and we decided to kind of move on for the squad that I had before. And I decided to bring in some boys that I knew from my time in working with the youth up at Rangers and St Mirren, etc. And really just regenerate the squad a little bit. So that was two years ago, and the plan was for me to try and build on that, develop them, work hard with them for the next 2 years up until this point, and then kick on. But the way the Scottish Lower League football is at the moment, money seems to be money's talks, unfortunately. And the guys, in fairness to them, the ones that we lost 7 of that group that I worked over the last 2 years to work hard to get better. And the boys, in fairness to themselves, obviously had done really, really well. And that basically we got pickpocketed for players, and really ended up back at square one, but back a couple of steps instead of our squad. So, but it's football at the end of the day, and you've got to deal with things like that. I felt we were a bit unfortunate for that to happen. I was disappointed with it because I'd worked up so hard to put that squad together, and we find ourselves in this situation. So I rebuilt the squad, basically a rebuild job, and we're looking okay. We'll be a work in progress this year, John. To be honest, that's for sure.
And just from obviously your point on your position, so when you come to things like that and rebuilding the squad, do you find that a lot of your, because you kind of mentioned about places you'd been before, so a lot of your contacts and kind of history within the game is a massive help?
A huge help. Like recruitment. I remember when I was at St Mirren, I was a reserve coach at St Mirren, and Tommy Craig was the manager. He lost his job, and I remember him saying to me, like, if you ever take a first team job at whatever level, recruitment is the most important thing you can do. So that, and then comes in to answer your question about your network of contacts and people willing to help you out, because ultimately everybody's wanting the same thing. They need to do it for their own team and etc. But to have a network of contacts within the youth game and the senior game is really, really important. But that time, the boys that I'd worked with, in fact, I would say 90% of the squad that I brought in last 2 years ago, I worked with them at youth level at Rangers and Motherwell, and but not so much youth, but the reserve level at St Mirren. So 90% of the boys, or I knew them from youth level, from playing against them, and I thought they boys are good players. They've been released for these clubs. And my job at that point was to really just build them back up again, because as you'll know and understand that if you've been released for Rangers or Celtic or Partick or Motherwell, that's going to take a dent to your confidence at 19-year-olds. So there was a big rebuilding job, and that really took 2 years to get them back to the potential that they showed initially when they were young, to then become senior players and kick on. But my knowledge of the youth game continues to come in handy. I need to always refresh that. I go to as many games as I can, reserve games on a Tuesday and youth games when I can get to them on a Friday, etc. 18s games. So I've got a network and more a database than a network, but a database of players out there that I know, right, okay, that one might come up and he could add to your team, etc. So it's not an easy job. Recruitment stuff, that's for sure. That's for sure.
And just to kind of touch on that a wee bit, in regards to the recruitment, because obviously when you look at, going up the levels, you see all these people involved in recruitment, but where you're at, is that very much a lot of the base in finding players? Is that down to your kind of small network of people?
Yeah, I mean, I have one scout I brought in the end of last year to go and cover games, midweek games, etc. Because I couldn't do it myself. You just can't get to that many games, and you need to cover a wide range of games just to see who's out there. Like you need to always refresh who's out there. But ultimately at Caledonian Blues, we're a small club, so everything in terms of the football department does come down to myself. Sometimes you get a wee bit lucky, sometimes you get a player that contacts you, and you can get lucky with that sometimes because they're looking for an opportunity. It's right place, right time.
Yeah.
But you can't rely on that because you just can't rely on that. That's got to be a timing thing. But yeah, my job essentially is the head coach, the manager of the team, but the chief scout, and and I take a pride in that because ultimately it's going into my team,
Yeah.
So they need to be a certain type of person and a certain profile of player, and sometimes I need to take a gamble on that as well to fit into the team, obviously.
And with you now as you're saying, being a manager, did you find the transition? I know there was, where you'd worked at kind of youth level and reserve level, but did you find the transition from playing to managing an easy transition to do?
Only because I worked at youth level, and I think, and it's just my opinion, I think the best managers and the best coaches don't go straight into managing and coaching from when they play. They obviously do their licenses, do their badges, but that only gives you a certain amount of practice. You need to, for me, you need to work at various different age groups. You need to learn how to coach, how to teach players. And if you look at all the best managers, they've done their time as coaches in the youth departments, with the exception of quite a few that have just went in there straight away and learned on their toes, which is fine as well. There's no one way to do it. For me, I knew when I was playing, and I finished at 32, 33 in America, in a league called the USL League, and I decided just to come out of it at that point, focus on my coaching, because I started coaching at 26 while I was still playing. It was wee kids and wee camps and things like that. And then I developed into working in the youth department at Queen's Park. We had didn't know at the time, but we had an amazing squad at that time. I was still playing for Clyde at that point. I was still full time at Clyde, and I used to coach it in the evenings at Queen's Park with Andy Roberts in our team, Laurie Shankland in our team, a few other boys that are kicking about the lower leagues of football. At that point as well, and it was important to get out and try and taste all sort of age groups of, for me certainly, of all age groups of players, just to learn how to coach essentially, but also speak to players and learn what you're all about yourself. What's your own values on playing football? What do you believe in? That type of thing. And it was important for me as well when I decided I want to go and work in first team football to get the right place. And the right place for me was something that I could build. I certainly got that. It was something that was also in fruition. That was working in the background with myself and Chris Ewan when we were at Edusport together. And it so happens that the kind of project became quite perfect for me. And I always felt, rather than maybe going straight into a League Two or a League One job where the pressures are high, you don't get the time. You could be 6 weeks in a job and, you're out of it. If you don't do well, you don't get a good start, you inherit a squad. So I felt my kind of pathway was definitely see if I could get a project that I could help build and take it as far as we could go, and, work together behind the scenes and do it that way. And, it's worked out all right in that terms. It certainly suits the way I want to go about it.
And obviously, we kind of briefly touched on at the beginning that you've had a career with quite a few different clubs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I learn a lot. I mean, like people always say, like, I don't have any regrets and this and that. But my football career was, it was a professional career. I ground out a living. I done all right, enjoyed myself, but I do think it could have been better, and I only blame myself. And there's various reasons for that. I think, you know, a bit of immaturity. I didn't really have any guidance. And there's no excuse, but I just kind of, you know, like, you know, a couple of times I made moves that maybe I shouldn't have done. But you know, you live and learn, you become mature and things like that. And like I say, I didn't have an agent really working for me at that time. I did, you know, my parents, you know, were, you know, always supportive, but I just kind of made my own decisions. And
Yeah,
sometimes you make immature decisions. You know, for example, like I was like we could when I was at Partick, I was playing, and we were in the Premier League at the time. And my last ever game for Partick was against Rangers. It was live on the telly, and it was at for Hull. We actually drew the game 1-1. But I'd been out for nearly 3 months with an injury, and the manager, Jerry Collins, had got sacked. And Derek White, Jerry Britton took over temporary, and then they got the job. And I remember Derek White saying to me, "Look, we want you playing this game." And I said, "Right, okay." And they gave me 45 minutes of a reserve game. And on the Tuesday, and then we played Rangers on the Sunday. And I played this game, and I remember thinking, "My God, I'm nowhere near fit enough here. I'm miles off that." I was playing against, I think I was in the team, Frank de Boer. It was his first game. Ronald de Boer was playing, if I remember right. So they had a right good squad, you know, like proper players. And Lovenkrands, he scored actually kind of late on. And I got dragged off after 75 minutes, and I was like, I shouldn't have lasted 75 minutes. And one of the worst decisions in my career, because I wasn't fit enough. My
yeah,
ankle wasn't right, but I thought, immaturely and stupidly, I'm going to play this game. I'll be okay. And when I remember playing in it, I was like, miles off this here. And I never kicked the ball again for Partick, and that kind of set the tone for that. And then, you know, decided to move to Hamilton Accies after that. And I regret that, you know, like going back to that, people have no regrets, but I'm like, nah, I shouldn't have done that. You know, I should have said, look, I'm not ready. Not even just for me, for the squad, for the team. Albeit that, you know, we got a 1-1 draw in that day. But so be things like that. I look back and think, you know, I could have handled things a little bit better in that scenario. But you know, you live and learn and you grow old, and you know, you can only pass that knowledge on to you know, the players that I have at my disposal now.
when you look back on your career, was there any kind of manager or maybe a couple of managers that you look at now as being people that you've learnt a lot from?
I mean, you take a lot from different ones, and you don't until you're in the same position or a similar position. You know where I'm at now. You maybe don't appreciate the decisions that they make, and also how they go about their business, like on a daily basis. You know, and why they kind of choose to manage in the way that they do. So I look back at things like that. You know, for example, John Lambie, you know, was brilliant. Alec Totten, you know, I need to mention him because he put me in as a 17-year-old boy at Falkirk. You know, and actually bumped into him. It was actually a funeral, and I was chatting to him, and I said, "Look, you know, you put me in. You know, I've got a lot to thank you for." I still call him Gaffer. You know, and still kind of commands that respect from me.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, you were good enough, and I just wanted to fling you in, and you know, you took your opportunity." So you know, he didn't have to do that when I was 17. He could have, you know, chose somebody else, but. I think I looked on the way he manages. You know, when I look back at it, when he had to kind of redo his squad, that he gave a lot of the younger guys a chance and was quite, you know, patient with us, and he used to kind of fly off the handle quite a lot in previous years when I was just an apprentice there. To the squad that he had a senior, you know, experienced squad. He never used to do that so much with the younger lads. So I suppose handling younger players and managing different types of people from Alex Totten was certainly a lesson. But other guys in there like Kevin McAllister used to be brilliant. Used to do a lot of kind of one-to-ones with Kevin McAllister. I don't know if you remember him. He was a fantastic player. Crunchy used to call me. He was a brilliant, good guy. You know, helped me a lot. And then I went to Partick with John Lambie and Jerry Collins. But Jerry was a big champion in me. He, you know, like I remember on this is John Lambie's last year, and Lambie played me sporadically, and I had one more game to go before my wages would go up. in that season. So Lambie kept benching me, didn't want to put me in the starting team. But Jerry was going to be taking over the next year. So Jerry took over the last game of the season against Hibs at Easter Road. And Jerry says, look, just so that I know about your financial situation, that your money's going to go up, but I'm going to put you in it, and I know that will give you more money, but you deserve it anyway. And I thought, you know what, fair play to you. Lambie was good. I liked Lambie, but he's always had to balance these books at that particular year. But also the things that he knew I was kind of holding on to wait for this. I think it was my 10th appearance or 10th start or 15th start or something like that. And he wasn't giving me when he wasn't giving me it. But a couple of times he put me on the bench and he gave me the full win bonus when the boys won. And he said, you can't, just to keep me happy basically, but just wee man management tricks that guys like that, were thinking about. You take it for granted when you're young, but and you think, oh well, I deserve that anyway. But it's not till after you think, well, do you know what, fair play. Jerry Collins didn't have to do that when he become the manager. He said, what, that gives you anyway. So he was thinking about me. He was looking after me at that. But there's been other guys throughout the years. There's been a lot. I've not really played under a bad manager, I would say. They've all had different ways of doing things. Kenny Black was really good at Airdrie, John. He was really good. He just we had a really good team for 1 year, and then the next year we were struggling in the championship. And he just what I learned from him was just every day it'd be the same. He wouldn't be upbeat. He wouldn't be depressed. I can only remember one time I thought, he's upset with us here, but regardless of winning and losing and drawing at the weekend, albeit we're totally just kept the same, just kept the same sort of mentality. But that shows a strength of character to me.
Yeah.
I learned that, in the bad times when things aren't going well, you need to rise above it a wee bit, and regardless of what's going on inside you, you need to portray, more, a positive, output to your players. So lots of things, wee man management things, I suppose, right throughout the years, is things that you pick up along the way.
And I do kind of feel that I need to touch on when you went to Sengkang Punggol. I mean, looking around at like a lot of other places that you'd been, obviously it stands out because of where it is. But how did that come about?
Well, I was at Hamilton in Parliament in Australia. A guy called Scotty Tunbridge was playing with Hamilton at the time from Australia, and so me and Scotty was playing at Hamilton, and I moved on for Hamilton, and kind of had not a fallout, but just again you talk about regrets. Like I shouldn't have left Hamilton. I played every game, and it was in the championship at the time, and I played every game. And I remember Roy, who was the owner at the time, came up to me and said to Alan Maitland to speak to me, and just basically said, "You're on a transfer list, by the way, just one training session." And I was like, right, because on the Saturday I played against St Johnstone, and the manager said, I was one of the best players on the park. So I was like, how's that? And he said, I'll just move on. And I had a wee thing with one before, and he said something to me in the changing room one time, and just young, and you kind of, I didn't react. It was nothing aggressive, but it was just like, he said something to me, and I think there was a bit of mixed messages. Anyway, I should have done my heels in at Hamilton Accies, and I didn't do that, and I decided to go to Forfar, which I shouldn't have done. Forfar was a good club, by the way, brilliant club. But it was full-time, part-time that I was going, and I was like, I'll just go there for a few months. So anyway, in that time, I was like, I probably need to go maybe abroad or something like that. I wanted a change to continue playing full-time football, and I just felt, I just needed to get out of Scottish football really and see what else was out there in the world. And through Scotty and my Australian guy at Hamilton Accies, he put me on to, Dave McPherson. If you remember Dave McPherson, played with Hearts and Rangers. He was an agent, and he was based in Australia back and forth. I think he was doing a lot of stuff over in Australia. Anyway, Australia's not a million miles away from Singapore. It's closer to Singapore than we are. Well, some parts of that anyway. And he said, look, I've got an Aussie coach, an English coach that lives in Australia, who's going to manage in Singapore. He's just got the job. He's looking for some players who have played at a half decent level. would you consider going over? And I was like, I just bought a flat in the town with my bird at the time, which was stupid because I couldn't afford it. And, you know, like fancy flat in the town, what am I thinking about? And it just sent me forfeit. So that the money had just disappeared. And I was like, right, what am I going to do here? And I said, right, okay. So I ended up, selling the flat to the lassie. Basically splitting up there, going to Singapore and playing a year out there, and just kind of reinvent myself a bit, just finding, just a bit of clarity, I suppose. I think I was 24, 25, and just thinking, right, that's me out of the Scottish football bubble, because that's what it is, as you'll know. Everybody, it's an intense bubble, where everybody's fighting and scrapping, and just to get out of that, and just something different. And so I played under a guy called Trevor Morgan in Singapore, and we had a good time. Our squad was all right, and I had a couple of opportunities to stay over that way. I went to Malaysia for a wee bit. It's not in the records, but I went over there for a month to play. But Malaysia's a big league, you had to get good crowds and things like that. And I was thinking about what I travelled about. I didn't go there. I ended up back in Scotland at Ayr, actually. so I went round about to get to Ayr. United at the time. But it was a good experience. It just got me out. It just got me out of the Scottish football bubble. Like I said, I needed sort of change, something different, and a chance to do that. And it was good. It was full time. It was incredibly hot. The league was decent. Similar to maybe the Championship, a wee bit below. But it was a different style of football, and it wasn't quite up and at 'em like Scottish football is, or frenetic. It was a bit more pass and move and controlled, mainly due to the weather. You can't be too back and forth because of the heat, really. So that was a good time that I had over there, and decided to come back and sign there at the time, because their seasons went from basically, I think they started in February time and finished round about November, December time. So I'd finished at Forfar, and then I went there. So I finished the season with Forfar, and then I went there when it was just about to start, I think, and running about March, I think it must have been, because I was there for pre-season for a bit. So it was good, enjoyed it.
And when you come back, and also as we're saying, you went to Ayr, what was the kind of feelings in coming back? Did you feel a lot kind of better about everything now, having that kind of time away and then coming back to Scotland?
I think I did. I didn't give it too much thought. In terms of, I was just like, okay, I'll come home, and because of the way that it was the off season in Asia at that time. So I was like, well, I've still got an opportunity to come back. So if I want to go back, I'll go back. So thought I'll sign the Ayr, see how we go with that. And I signed there, and Ayr was good. There's a big club, as you know, it was like well supported, and but they were a wee bit in the doldrums at that particular point. It was League One, I think, and we had a decent squad. Andy McLaren was in the squad. There was some good players at the time, and we started to do okay. The manager at the side, Robert Connor, was the manager, and they got sacked. Brian Reid took over, but he was really good. He played me. I scored a few goals. I always remember my first game at Ayr. I was taking a corner. One of the United fans ran down the terrace at the back, the shed back. Ran down the kind of few terrace steps, and he shouted at him, and he was like, "Hey, Waddell, away back to China." Honestly, it was 20 minutes into my first game. I was like, my goodness, I'm not getting away with anything here. And I was going to say, I'm like, it wasn't China I was in, I was actually in Singapore, so you need to get your facts right. So I just moved to China, might have been all right, actually. But so that was that, and then I was there to the summer, and then again the management team changed. Team changed 3 times. Eventually, Neil Watt, who eventually took me to Clyde when he was director of football there. But Neil Watt came in, and Stuart Miller came in, and I moved on after that. And the boys came in, But it was like 6 months of 3 different managers. It was pretty mad, to be honest.
How do you kind of feel that is, like, when you're a player and you're seeing a lot of kind of changing managements and stuff? Do you as a player find that unsettling, or do you really just try and get on with what you do?
I mean, you should just go on with what you do. But I found it uncertain. I didn't like it at all. I like the stability of the same manager because you buy into what he's saying, and you're buying into his training and all that. And everybody was training was a lot bit different. Some wasn't good at all, and some was very good. But um, I always tended to try and be loyal to the manager and that. So when there's change, something new comes in, and what they're talking about, and when there's too many changes in a small period of time, it doesn't work. It loses credibility, and from a player's point of view, in my perspective, because you think the club's making changes for a reason. Something's not right, So it does upset the way the kind of squad is definitely. Just the environment, I suppose, more than anything else, where there's a lot of change and a lot of disruption. It's like anything in life, there's too much disruption. There's no consistency, and that affects the end product. Whatever working industry that we're talking about.
And yeah, kind of after that, you had a couple of separate spells with Airdrie and also with Clyde. What was that like, kind of jumping back and forth?
Well, it wasn't really meant, it wasn't in the plan, but Airdrie, I signed with Airdrie, and Airdrie were full time, and we were in League One at the time. So I thought that would be a good one to come in and play. And Kenny Black was the manager. I really liked Kenny Black. I liked him. Again, like I'd said to you, it's just what he was. There was nothing behind the scenes with him. He was quite honest and upfront with you, and I liked that. And we had a really good side, but Alan also up front, a couple of good players. Kevin McDonald, Graham Holmes in the middle of the park, and we played really good football that year. Really, really good football. And League One at that time was quite strong when the Rovers were in it. Ross County were in it. Full-time teams. There was, I think, I remember 3 or 4 full-time teams in it, so it was a tough division to get out of. And we played really some good stuff, and enjoyed that. And I'll be honest with you, it came down to finances for me. Like you've got to look after the pennies as well. I never made moves money, but Clyde, John Brown had just took over, and we played them in the playoff, and I done really, really well. And I got a call after the playoff, and it was John Brown. He said, "We're off you a good deal for next year. We're going to go challenge for the league, in the championship." Airdrie never got through. We lost against Clyde in the second game of the playoff, and so we didn't get up to the championship. I wanted to get to the championship because I always felt that was my level. And they offered me a really, really good deal over 2 years as well. And so I said, I phoned Kenny Black and I just said, "Look, they offered me this deal. Can you match it? Can you get close to it? Can you get a couple of years? What's the plans going forward?" And Kenny just said to me, "Look, I can't do it, can't get anywhere near it." It wasn't, no sitting here a millionaire or it, but it was good working man's money at that particular point over 2 years, and I hadn't had a 2-year contract in a few years prior to that. So I felt, I need that stability. I was 27, 28 at the time. I was starting to think about what's next in my life, so I thought that's a good opportunity to do that. And then as it turns out, the backer, so we played that season, and the backer pulled out after the first year, and I had a meeting at the end of the year at Clyde, and one of the board members came in and said, "Look, here, we can't honour your contracts. We're going to 1 month's pay. You can stay if you want, but we need to renegotiate. We're talking about going part-time." And that's where that came about, so it was as simple as that. And I thought, right, okay, and then Kenny Black, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Aye.
It's frozen my screen there.
No, I get your screen's froze.
I see that, all right. So at that point, Kenny Black came back in for me. Airdrie got into the championship at that point, and I signed back with him. And then similar type of thing happened. We had a poor season that year. We ended up, in the relegation playoffs, and then I stopped actually. I stopped for a few months. I was like, what am I going to do here? And towards the end, when I was there, and I decided to join there at that point. And again, that was disruptive because they got the sack. It was Stuart Miller who was the manager. Stuart got the sack. Stuart was a good guy as well. You know, again, my management was really, really good. But he got the sack, and then Jim Duffy took over. So yeah, I went to Clyde, and Jim Duffy came in, and I have to admit at that point, my head was like, I was thinking about just finishing up, and then I got a call from Alan Ruskin. I don't know if you remember Alan. Alan, he worked a wee bit with the English national team, but Alan played with Kilmarnock and played with me at Aberdeen. He was in America at the time. And he phoned me. I was in a night out actually. It was a Christmas night out in the town, and I had a few beers. And Alan phoned me. So Alan phoned me first. So I answered. I went outside the pub and answered the phone, and he said, "Look," he said, "I'm going to Los Angeles." He said, "I spoke to the manager about you. He's looking for a left-sided player. Do you fancy it?" And I was like, "Do you fancy it?" I was thinking about finishing up. I was thinking about retiring part-time. I didn't really enjoy the part-time stuff. It was enough training for me, and I just felt, that was maybe my time, maybe another season or so at it. And so I asked Alan what the deal was, and not telling the manager, but just what was the situation. He said, "Well, look, the season starts in April. He said, come over. I'll put you in contact with the manager." So I spoke to the manager, I got a chat with Nemo, and he said, come over in February for a week. So I went over in February for a week, trained a bit, met the team, met Charlie, and sat down, and he offered me the deal. And I said to my wife, at the time we were married, I had been married, and at that time I said, "Look, I've got an opportunity." I remember going home at the night out actually, and I came home and I said to Andrea, and I said, "Did you fancy going to America? Fancy going to Los Angeles? I've got a chance to go over there." And she was like, "What are we talking about?" And she had a good job and things like that. So I ended up just going out myself. But I went out in that February for a week, and we decided, right, okay, this is a good thing. We both of us said, right, okay, let's just try it. And then I went out to America, played in the USL League, which is like it's the league underneath the MLS, essentially.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. I had a great time. Staying in Los Angeles was great. It was going really well. Got made captain, and things were really, really good. I got offered to stay another year. I actually got a bad injury towards the end, and I came back, but I got offered another year, and I just thought, my life's going to be about coaching at that point, and I wanted to be about coaching. So I was doing my A license at the time, so I decided to come back. I enjoyed myself a lot over there, myself, my wife, and me and our oldest boy. We had a good time while we were over there. She came over back and forth, but it wasn't really sustainable. I suppose the option was to make a life for herself over there. Andrea, had a good job. She was working towards what she was doing, and I was wanting to do. I was working coaching, so I felt Scotland was a better option. So I finished playing. I think it was 33 or something like that. I finished playing at that point, and decided to put myself wholeheartedly into coaching from then.
And when you look at obviously where you've been and done in your career, when you then look at the kind of Scottish game and the kind of setup on that, so just get an example. When I've kind of spoke to quite a few people recently about it, and obviously it's no surprise that the money very much dwindles away from a kind of handful of clubs going down. But do you even feel like the kind of, the advertisement of the kind of lower leagues and stuff is where it should be?
No, I mean, I think, listen, I love Scottish football, and one of the reasons I came on your podcast because, you're talking about lower leagues, and then that's important to get that message out there. But the lower league in Scottish football is really good. There's some really, really good players, some really, really good teams, there's some brilliant clubs that have been on the go for 120 years, and I just think it's great. and we don't give yourself enough credit. So I love the product of Scottish football. I would watch, you know, on a Friday night, and you know, there was a Premier League game playing, you know, Everton against on the, and Ayr were playing Pollock or something like that. And you know, I would rather watch Ayr against Pollock in the Scottish Cup than I would watch the Premiership sometimes, you know, genuinely. You know, a lot of people go, I love Man City, all the clubs are phenomenal, but it's a different thing. So it's a completely different thing. It's like, if you go to the English Premier League, it's like going to the theatre, you know, but if you come to Scottish football, it's like going to a boxing match or,
Aye.
you know, dog racing or something like that. You know, it's a bit more raw and it's a bit more real, but that's what I like about it. Our setup's wrong, John. The whole structure from SFA, and I'm not here to give anybody a hard time, but like the whole structure from the SFA towards the SPFL, towards the lower league. If you were to design Scottish football right now, you wouldn't design it in the way it's done. You know, you've got SFA, which is the governing body, you've got SPFL in charge of, it's a company essentially in charge of 4 leagues. You've got the Lowland League, it's in charge of itself, you've got the Highland in charge of itself, and you've got the Western Scotland Leagues, it's in charge of itself. The South and the East, they're all separate entities trying to work it out together. And then it all, and the way the voting structure, and the way it's structured in terms of getting things done, you know, by clubs having to vote on it, it's never ever going to work. The self-interest in the politics that is born because of the structure is wrong, is never ever going to work, and it's stopping Scottish football going forward, in my opinion. It needs to rewrite itself. It needs to redo how it's governed. Because I do believe there's a lot of good people at the Scottish FA that want the right thing. There's good people in the SPFL, and right the way through Scottish football, there's some brilliant people, but it's the structure that is letting us down massively, in my opinion. And the way to remedy that, for me, is to scrap the way it's structured and have a hierarchy of 4 or 5 people from different backgrounds, but generally from football backgrounds, to make decisions on Scottish football in terms of promotion, relegation, right the way through the pyramid. You know, financial decisions, how money is distributed, advertisement, Scottish Cup, you know, all that sort of stuff that's gets made decisions on. So we're well off of that. That's utopia for me. That would make Scottish football progress, and it would also give players, you know, if you're talking about the product on the part, I think that would give players a good opportunity as well, because at the moment it's very, very difficult to get out of the Lowland League or the Highland League, for example. But there's some very good players in there, so it needs to be a bit more sporting fairness right throughout the whole of Scottish football.
And it's interesting to me what you're saying, because recently Gordon Smith was on.
Yeah.
So obviously he had his position at the SFA, and amongst everything that he done, and he was actually explaining that he never done his due diligence on when he took the job. So he never realised before he took it that he couldn't make decisions. Basically anything he wanted went to a board, and the board only met once a month.
Yeah.
So he says, when I was coming up with these ideas, and then I was taking it to the board, but I would have to wait. If they just did a meeting, I'd have to wait. And then when he looked at restructuring the lower leagues, that went to a vote. And I mean, his is due out in a couple of weeks, but he explains on it everything that he kind of proposed, but how very quickly the stuff can get knocked back.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. You know, like, that's a really good insight into exactly what it's like. It's like the Cledonian club, and you know, like, you know, it's almost that sort of mentality where, you know, we'll meet once a month. You know, but you know, it's people in social media are real pride in what they do. You know, they talk about the Blazers and all that. You know, like that is like a Lowland club. You know, in terms of, you know, like that sort of old-fashioned sort of traditional way of doing things. But that's outdated now, you know. And that's really interesting, like you say. You can't produce change, and you can't go forward if that's how the decision-making process is made at the very top of the game. It just can't happen. Why that is, I don't know, because there's not enough money to give these guys jobs. I just don't know, but for me, it needs a hierarchy of people, like I talked about Gordon Smith, to say, right, okay, let's try and change the game. Let's not be too radical, but change it for the better. Because I don't think it's a hard fix. I really don't. It's not a hard fix for me, and I just think it just needs almost dictated to the whole of Scottish football what needs to happen. So I don't know if that ever will because of the politics, you know.
And it was interesting because in his he did kind of go right into depth about the what he looked to do for the kind of lower leagues and the lowland clubs, and how he wanted it structured as like north and south to kind of save in travelling costs, because obviously lower league clubs, you know, part-time players, a lot of kind of travelling and stuff and missing works. And he came up and he goes right into depth about what he kind of looked to do. And when it went to the vote, it got knocked back.
Yeah, and that's it in a nutshell. Because those people are voting, they're probably chairmen or board members of clubs
Yeah,
that affect them, and that's where the politics and the self-interest comes in. And you would argue, you know, why would they vote again? You know, why would they vote for change if it's going to, you know, adversely affect their own club, their finances, their ability to stay in the league? But sport and football is about performance, it's about winning and losing, it's about getting relegated, it's about getting promoted, and it's sport meritocracy. So, you know, what you merit, you know, you know, your performance is related to doing well or not doing well. And it's the way your club runs. So it pushes everybody to make sure things are running in the right manner. But as you know, Scottish football, the Club 42 has been hanging on for a long time. There's no relegation for a long time.
yeah.
But now the pyramid's opened up, there's a half a door that they can fall through. And that's obviously happened. And if you look at the clubs it's happened to, they're going to have to regenerate their club. It's forced them to go and do it. If you look at Berwick as a good example, they were hanging on for years. And the Scottish division's doing well some years, and then they fell out of it. But they've had to regenerate their whole club, and they've got a good thing going on down at Berwick now. They've got, you know, good community programmes going on. It's basically gave them a kick up the backside that they needed to say, right, we need to do something about this to try and get ourselves back out of this. Kevin Beast, you know, probably going to do the same, and he's still in, you know, clubs like that. So very challenging for those clubs that come out of it, but very difficult to get back up. So change is needed. We need the right people to go and make that happen, I think.
Because I definitely agree, because I think there was a bit of kind of misconception when, you know, some of these clubs went down, they'd very quickly be back up again, which I think was a kind of general thought. And now you're looking, and even if you look at Albion Rovers, the kind of recent club to get down, I mean, in their last league game of the season, they beat Stirling Albion, who were champions, quite considerably, but then find themselves down, having to restructure and redo. And I suppose the financial impact on that, drop them out of the kind of league's been massive.
Exactly, and it comes down, it all does come down to finance. I think there's a parachute payment that they get for a year or 2 years or whatever, and that can only last them so long, so they'll be wanting to try and bounce back very quickly. But it's very hard. No club's ever done that. Come into the lower league and bounce back up.
Yeah.
For the reason it's so hard, and also the good teams in the league. You know, Spartans took quite a number of years to get out of the league. You know, they won the league on a number of occasions, couldn't get out. East Kilbride flung so much money in it, couldn't get out. No near to being out, getting out. I mean, again, they're doing the same thing again, so they were hoping to get out of it. There's also Cledonian, there's also Lithgow Rose, you know, traditional junior clubs that are now senior clubs playing in the Lowland League that are very well run clubs. So you're not going to Cledonian and having an easy game. You know, you're not going to Lithgow Rose and having an easy game because they're ex-juniors or whatever. These are all tough games with some good players, well-run clubs, managed well, and you know it's very hard. The Lowland League's getting very challenging year on year. To compete in, let alone get out of it.
Yes.
So that's the challenge these clubs, if they come out of it, face. But you could argue you should have done better. You know, you should have had more ambition while you were in the league setup, and only they'll know that, I suppose.
And you know, just kind of touch on what you said about the setups. A few times I'd went over to Spartans, and because I kind of travel about and like to kind of watch a lot of low league football across the board, and their setup massively out of a lot shocked me. How kind of well set up and run all that was. I think
Yeah.
I got an initial shock when I walked in and there was 2 stands.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
some teams in the Scottish Football League that don't have that.
That's right. That's right. And Spartans have got a really good thing. You can't argue with Spartans, like they're a well-run club. They've got a good pay structure. They've got to look after their players and their staff. They've got, like you say, the 2 stands there, and it just looks the part. It looks the part. They're a modern club, to be honest with you, in terms of their setup.
Yeah.
And how they went about their business. They've got a lot of their youths, they've got a lot of community programs going on, they've earned a lot of money through that. So you can only applaud the guys that there for doing that. Obviously, at Cali Braves hat on, you look a wee bit across enviously, but we've got to always pinch yourself to see that we're only 4 or 5 years old. We're starting, we've got, other clubs have got a big head start on us in terms of all that side of things. But if you've got Spartans, it's a good setup. You've got, Trent, it's a good setup as well. Like all these clubs, there's some good places that you can go and play in the lower league that are professionally run, in order to go and try and progress their own squads. But and that's part of it. The Spartans have brought a good environment over there, and that's part of the reason why they got promoted.
And when we look at Caledonian Braves, I know we touched on quite a few different points at the beginning, but when you look at that, what's the kind of vision of the club there?
Well, we're in about a transitional period at the moment, John. I think my vision for the squad that I had when I put together 2 seasons ago was from this point to really go and kick on. So that's been kind of taken away from it. But regardless of that, we need to still want to try and kick on and progress on the park. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to take a wee bit more time. I think we're a couple of years away from that on the pitch stuff. But behind the scenes, we're starting to progress. We're starting to look to get in money. And unfortunately, the lower league football shouldn't be about money, but it is about money. Like players command a wage now that's challenging to reach. I lost every one of those players mainly due to money. We couldn't get anywhere near what these teams were paying. We just couldn't afford it. So that's part of the club that needs to be rectified. And I know Chris and the owners work really, really hard. It can't just be sustained on the money that he gets for his businesses and things like that. It's just not sustainable. So I think we've done really, really well. Like for Chris and myself, I think we've been a big part of it. Obviously, the 2 of us working away at the club, getting it to the stage that it's at now. But now we need help from other areas, behind the scenes. We need other areas to be better, the local sponsorship packages, just to get money in basically, but also casting that further wide. I know we've actually really got, because of our app, and it was Chris's idea, we developed this application that people across the world can look at this wee new club and take a fancy to it. And we've actually got people in Singapore, people in Australia, we've got people in America, a lot of people in America are really, really interested in the club. Weirdly enough, I've got a pal, he works with NASA. Guy called Dean, great guy. His family originally originated in Glasgow, and he came over to Glasgow when he was staying over here, and he was asking me about what I do, and I was saying about Cali Braves. So he loves it. He absolutely loves it. He thinks it's a fantastic idea. This new club looking quite ambitious, looking to try and grow, and basically I kind of right, let's see where we can get to. So people like that, maybe like to invest in the club and bring it forward, and with a group of various different people that Chris is looking to try and help bring the club forward on a financial footing, because ultimately it does. We are in a semi-professional environment, so ultimately money does matter in order to progress the club. So we're looking at best ways to get that going forward, and my job is to try and solidify the squad on the park. I think, realising the losses that we've had, to then try and rebuild it as quick as I possibly can for the season coming.
And the kind of final couple of questions that I like to ask is, firstly, if we're in Scotland and we look at the Championship, who would be your kind of pick for winning it or being there or thereabouts at the end of the season?
You're asking that question because it's the hardest question to answer.
Yep.
Because the championship could be, like what was it last year? I think in the last couple of games, it was like, what was it? 1-1 and you could end up the playoffs, and one loss you could end up nearly in the relegation. So I don't know. I like what Partick are doing. I really like what Partick are doing. I feel that they've got a real momentum. I think we're very unlucky not to get promotion there. They kind of came from nowhere. So if he gets in there and he continues that same, vein of form, to go and try and get promoted, and I think with the way that they're playing, very aggressive. I don't really watched them before, so I watched a little bit and heard a little bit, but very forward thinking, very aggressive type of football, and getting it forward, good quality in there as well. I mean, lumped it forward. I mean, good attacking play from what I hear. I think Partick, will be there or thereabouts. And I suppose personally, from my point of view, being one of my ex-clubs, I think it would be great if it did get up. It's a really good club. Falkirk obviously is not there. I was disappointed. I really like John McGlennon there. I think he's a brilliant manager. I think he's a right guy for Falkirk. Hopefully he gets them out of League One into the Championship. Obviously, I always look at Falkirk and Partick to try and do well. So I think the Championship, I think with Partick's form at the end of last season, they'll be hoping to continue that and make a stab at the league. But it's going to be a tough league, that's for sure. No doubt about that.
And then League One, I'm assuming you're at Falkirk for that?
Yeah, I think so. Falkirk's a big club. I would like Falkirk to go and do well from a personal point of view. But he's putting a good squad together, and I think if they can get a good start, if they can get the fans on their side in the first 10 games and just get that momentum going, I think Falkirk's get more than enough to go and win that league.
And then if we're at League Two, which I think's kind of close to the Championship and being pretty wide open.
It is totally wide open. We played Dumbarton at the start of the season. I like what they've got in there. I like the manager. I think he's got good ideas. I think they've got a good squad put together. Obviously started really, really well last year and sustained that through the year and just maybe lost their way for whatever reason in the end up. But I think they maybe have learned their lessons from whatever happened towards the end of the season. And I think Stevie Farrell's really, really good. I think he'll go and produce the goods for Dumbarton next year. I think they'll go. I think in my view, I think they could be the ones to go and win that league.
And I do kind of agree with that because Stevie, he was on one of the last guests that had done. His hasn't been released yet. But yeah, kind of sitting talking to him and his kind of views and visions and his knowledge across kind of every league was unreal. When he was picking out top goal scorers and players and where they've moved to and stuff. And histories was kind of, I found kind of fascinating, which obviously shows the kind of in-depth knowledge that he had. And looking at the kind of lowland leagues, where do you kind of see that for his next season?
For myself, I think we've got to be realistic again, and I don't want to keep going on about last year and the players that we've lost, but that in reality is the truth. But I think I'm going young again. I'm just going to go young. I can't afford some of the players that are about. And to be honest with you, they don't really command that. I don't worth that value. Some of them that are coming, that you see them, so worth it. So I'm going to go for a young, fresh squad. And it's hard to say where we'll place. I think, if we can better what we've done last year, I think it would be a success considering where we are. I think when somebody build the squad as we go, it's not just going to be a pre-season and then sign players, and then that'll be us. I think we need to keep adapting the squad as we go, keep adding. Maybe probably lose a couple of players that we think we're not quite up to it, and that is going to be a work in progress, like I said. But there's no reason why we can't go and have a good season. There's no reason why we can't have that. I think we've got good enough players in there to go and do that. And we've got ones in the background from last year who I think can really go and produce the goods. I think there's some good players in there that can go and do that. Cammy Brennan, there's John Guthries, Greg Stewart, Jack McDowell, Mike Collins, just to name a few, we've got fantastic big American goalkeeper with Bernie, White, came from nowhere. So we'll be all right, we'll be okay, and the league will be strong, I'm sure. But nobody, I'm going to find anybody. I think the league's good, but there's nothing that scares ourselves. That's for absolute sure. So we're going to attack things. We're going to be positive, and hopefully we'll get a good bit of fortune and pick up some momentum and have a good season.
And the final question I've got for you, Ricky, I appreciate your time spent with us this morning. If looking across your kind of career and everything that you've done, if there was to be a film made about it, who would you pick to play you?
What a question that is. Wasn't ready for that. Well, I love Woody Harrelson. I think Woody Harrelson's brilliant. So I wouldn't mind him playing that. Brad Pitt's not good looking enough for me, so but my wife will say that right enough. I mean, I like Woody Harrelson. I don't know, somebody with my personality. I don't know. Well, I tell you what, did you see a documentary? You should watch that. Did you ever watch that?
Was that, sorry?
We've got a documentary that was on the STV player. I think you can find it on YouTube. So I think it's called Brave Calling. It's called. You should have a watch at that. So do you know what? I don't know if anybody's worthy enough of playing myself, or maybe need to play my own self. I don't know, mate. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
Well, just to give you an idea, we had Stevie Farrell picking De Niro.
He's kidding himself on, man.
Yeah. But look, Ricky, I massively appreciate you coming on. I'll definitely be over at points to watches throughout the season. As I say, I kind of jump about a lot and watch it.
Give us a shout.
All the best for next season, and hopefully get you back on again at the end of the season, looking at a positive season. And I'm pretty sure quite a few of your picks will have been right for the leagues as well.
I don't think we're too far away. All right, mate. Thanks a lot, John. I'll get in touch with Woody Harrelson, see if he wants to play it when we get this film on. All right, mate. Top man,
Cheers,
appreciate
mate.
it.
Take it easy. Thank you.
All the best.